Aloha and welcome to Knitted Paradise, where the needles are clicking and the yarn is squishy. My name is Lucia, I'm your hostess, and you can find me on Ravelry and Instagram as Pearl of the Pacific. Today is Tuesday, October 21st, and this is episode 45. So welcome. Today's episode is going to be about finishing. We'll get more into that later. But that's going to be the episode. So let's jump right in. Blow the conch shell. We still have the October podiversary swap going on, and I'm starting to get my package together. Mine's taken a little longer than I wanted it to originally, but don't worry, swap partner, it will come. And so that's been really fun. And also, another announcement is Vogue Knitting Live is happening in Chicago this weekend at the Palmer House Hotel. I'm not entirely sure. But if you look up Vogue Knitting Live on Google or Palmer Hotel Chicago, it'll come up if you're trying to find it. Hi Pan, are you coming over? He's trying to find the most roundabout way to get over here. Are you coming? Come here. No, you can't do that. Come here, baby. You can sit here. Do you want to sit on my lap? There we go. That's what he wanted. Sorry for the little furry interruption. You just wanted to rub your cute face and everything, Alright, so I'm going to be at Vogue Knitting Live this weekend on Saturday and Sunday. Originally, I was only going to do Sunday because that's when I'm signed up for classes, but I now have an event on Saturday, so I'll be there both days, mostly in the afternoon, wandering around the marketplace, and I have classes on Sunday. So if you're coming, let me know, and I'll make a point to either arrange a meetup or tell you where I'm going to be, when, or just come find me. I'll be wearing my new sweater. I may only wear it on Sunday and wear another sweater on Saturday, I'm not sure. But I have bright red hair, so I'm kind of hard to miss. I am short, so don't look for tall redhead. Look for short redhead. Anyway, I'm not super short. I'm 5'3", so 5'3 and a quarter, sorry. Sometimes 5'3 and a half on a good day, maybe. Not really. I can pretend, right? Anyway, I'm really excited about Vogue Knitting Live. I really enjoyed it last year, and this year I'm not. Last year I didn't take any classes. This year I signed up for some classes, so I got everything ready for that the other day, or yesterday, I guess it was, because I got my homework done and it's all washed and blocked, and I needed some other supplies, so I put those together. I finished up some other things. I put my badge in the bag that I needed, and so it's all kind of together in one bag. Anyway, so that's this weekend, which is exciting. Let's get to On the Island. I have just a couple things on the island, and of course I left one. Oh, it's right there in my bag. Of course the cat's on my lap. I'll get it later. Anyway, I still have my summer fling bag, which got a little bit of attention. It's nice because it's just plain stockinette mostly. And so it's coming along. This is out of my mystery BFL. I mean, what I think is BFL. It's my mystery yarn. And I did the bottom in garter stitch just to make it a little more sturdy. I think I chose to, because the pattern is written for, I think it's Quince & Company. It's not a cotton, it's a linen yarn, and so it's not stretchy like wool is. And so I did the bottom in garter. That's the main modification I've made. And other than that, I don't think I've really changed much. So I've just been knitting on that. I think about ready to do the straps. So I've still got quite a bit of yarn left. So I might do maybe another inch, inch and a half, and then do the straps. Or I might just do really long straps. I'm not sure yet. So that I've been working on, and I cast something new on today just because I finished a bunch of things, but I'm not sure I'm entirely happy with it yet, so I'm not going to talk about it until I just cast it on at lunch and I wasn't quite sure what I thought about it. So that may be coming off. I don't know. We'll see. It's the colors. It's a multicolored thing and I don't know how I feel about them. So we'll see. So let's get to set sail, because a lot of things have set sail, obviously, if that's the only thing on my needles. First thing I finished, I guess we'll go with the sweater. I finished the sweater. I got, well, I finished the knitting on the sweater. I haven't finished the finishing on the sweater. Ooh, that needs to go in there. Of course, I've shoved it in the bag with everything else. So here is the Tea Leaves cardigan by Melissa Labar out of Sun Valley Fibers in their MCN worsted. And this is the one I was running out of yarn on, and Jeanette was so awesome and sent me another skein, and it's a little darker than the original, but I'm okay with that. So I did the button bands, and then I added a couple rows on the top here to kind of tie in that darker color. And yeah, I washed it and blocked it, and have now folded it and shoved it in my bag. So it's a little wrinkly. It was so heavy when it was wet. It was crazy. So I ended up, I stuck it in the dryer for like 5 minutes to kind of shrink it up because it had really gotten stretched out and it was really long. And I was like, I like long sweaters, but not that long. So I stuck it in the dryer right at the end. We don't have in-unit washer and dryer. We have like in the basement. So I was doing another load and I was like, I'll wait till the last like 10 minutes of the dryer cycle and stick it in with everything else. So I did that. It was just damp at that point. It wasn't sopping wet when I stuck it in the dryer. It was mostly dry. It was just a little damp. So I stuck it in the dryer and it kind of shrunk it up just enough. So it's perfect now. And I went to the fabric store and got some ribbon. They didn't have exactly what I wanted. They didn't have gray, like plain gray. So I got this like dot fabric. It's a little thinner than I would like, but that's okay. So tonight, after I record, I'm going to sew this onto the back of the button side of the button band, and then hopefully sew the buttons on. And I raided my button stash, and I found a whole bunch of black buttons. So that may be what I'm going to use. Unless I get to the fabric store tomorrow to get different buttons, this is what I'm going to use. Yes, do you like that? Do you like that? Pan's watching everything that goes by with high intent. Anyway, so that's the sweater. The knitting is done. I've woven in all of the ends, washed and blocked it, snipped all the ends, and now it just needs buttons. So I will be talking a little bit more about that in the finishing section. Next, I finished my husband's socks. These are out of Gnome Acres Little Plastic Bricks colorway, and I just made up the pattern. It's a textured stitch, so it's just knit and purls. Really simple. And the heels and toes are out of Malamia. I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce that. But it's just black. It's very black. And I think they turned out well. I'm glad I did the toes and heels in a different color because, and the cuffs, obviously, because I had barely any left. So those are done. They're washed and blocked and ready to be worn. So I'm excited about those. My husband likes them, so that's good because they're for him. All right, the other thing I finished, which I am really proud of. Are you guys ready? This is the most adorable thing ever. This is Chloe. And this is a pattern by Susan B. Anderson out of the Spud and Chloe on the Farm book. And her legs are a little twisted. But she's done. I finished her in time for Vogue Knitting Live. Yay! So I'm super excited about that. A little close-up of her face. I did her with blue eyes instead of brown eyes like the pattern calls for because I wanted her to look like me. So we both have red hair, blue eyes. I might do her lips in a little darker pink. I did get a little darker pink when I was at the fabric store getting the ribbon and the embroidery thread. And like me, she has cat hair everywhere. Well, not everywhere, but I've been trying to keep her away from the cat because he thinks she's a toy. She's not a toy for him. She's a toy for me. Right, Chloe? So, she is done. I also did her knickers. So she's got little underoos. And they turned out much better the second time. And I also did her sweater. I didn't have the lake, which is the darker blue that Susan B. Anderson used, but I did have some of the white, which is the ice cream. So I did her underwear and cardigan out of the ice cream. So I had bought the ice cream to do Spud, so I may have to get some extra to do Spud, but that's okay. I think she looks really nice in her little white sweater. I thought it would be really fun if I have time, I might make her another sweater out of the leftovers of my Sun Valley fibers, and then we could have matching sweaters, which I think would be really cute. So we'll see if I have time. I thought about it when I was about halfway through this one. I was like, no, I'll do it all in the same yarn so that she kind of goes together, and then I might make her some more clothes out of other things. So this is Chloe from Spud and Chloe, and she's done out of Spud and Chloe sweater, all of the yarns that are called for. So this is Toast, this is Splash, and this is Firecracker. So she's got quite a full head of hair, and she's got a little hair tie there. So, ta-da! Yay for Chloe! So I'm really excited about how she turned out. I had to do her face a couple times. The eyebrows and the eyelashes were a little fiddly, but she really wasn't that hard. I thought maybe I'd have a harder time with the face because I don't do a whole lot of embroidery, but I really enjoyed it. So yay for Chloe being done. All right. Is that it? Yes. I finished a lot of things though. So I wanted to talk a little bit about finishing and when do you consider an item finished. Chloe is obviously more finished than my sweater because there still needs to be buttons. There's also that sweater that I knit earlier this summer that still doesn't have buttons on it. We won't go there. I guess one level of finished, like when I mark a project finished on Ravelry, is when the knitting is done. When I finish the knitting, generally I've woven in the ends and it's ready to be blocked. You know, soaked and blocked. That's generally when I mark something as finished on Ravelry. And then after that, there's always, you know, the finishing work. Like with Chloe, I needed to embroider her face. With this, you know, a sweater or another garment, you often need to put buttons on it, or, you know, a zipper or whatever fastener you are planning on using. So there's all that finishing work that goes into garments and some other things as well. But when I mark things finished, the knitting is finished and ends are woven, and I count that as part of kind of the knitting or on my needles, you know, part. Is that if you haven't woven in your ends, you haven't really, you're not done with the yarn work knitting part, needle part. Because you still need a needle to weave in the ends, or a crochet hook, however you do it. I do a little bit of both, kind of depends. With toys, there's a sewing together part. I still count that as part of the needle part, so they're not off the needles. I guess we're talking finishing instead of on the needles and off the needles. So on the needles is, you know, I've knit all the parts and they haven't been sewn together. That's still on the needles for me. Once they're sewn together, that's considered off the needles for me. So I would mark them as finished. And then, you know, any embroidery work is kind of the finishing work. So there's kind of two categories there, I guess, of finishing. You know, sewing together or seaming for some garments, things like that. With socks, which are kind of usually knit all in one piece, I count them done once I've woven in the ends. And usually as soon as I weave in the ends, they go straight into the sink in my blue bucket to get soaked, and then they get hung to dry. That's usually a pretty quick turnaround time for me. So, you know, that's kind of the finished when they're done is, you know, woven in the ends, washed and blocked. Generally because that happens very quickly for me, because once they're done, I try to weave in the ends right away, just because if I let them sit for a while, then they just sit for a while, and I want to be wearing these socks that I've just finished. So I generally try to weave in ends right away for all projects, mainly because they're just annoying to do later on. You know, if you're still in the kind of groove of, you know, knitting or doing stuff with a needle, then weaving in the ends doesn't seem like a big deal. Whereas if I put it off until later, it seems like a really big deal. It's like, oh, I've got to weave in all those ends. So often I try to weave in as I go. When I was doing Chloe's sweater, you would not believe the amount of ends that I had to weave in on this thing. It was kind of insane for a little sweater that's mainly all in one piece. It's a free pattern, so I don't mind talking about it. But you knit the bottom up to here, and then you split the front and the back. So you knit one front, and you kind of put it on a holder. And you knit the other front, and you kind of put it on a holder, and then you knit the back. But, so one end is, you know, you've knit the front, and you put it on a holder, and you have that end, which you then use to, you know, graft those, like, 3 stitches, and then, you know, you have an end to weave in. On the other side, oh, bye Pan, you have an end from when you join in the yarn, and then an end from when you finish it, and then, anyway, there were a lot of ends, and I tried to weave them in as I went. There was a time when I wove in like 6 or 7 ends at once, which was really useful because when I was doing the sleeves, there weren't a bunch of ends hanging out, which was nice. And so like as I did one tie, I wove in the ends on that tie, and then I did the second tie, wove in the ends, you know, did a sleeve, wove in the ends, did the other sleeve, wove in the ends, and then when I was finished, I didn't have 14 ends to weave in. I just, you know, had the 1 or 2 from the sleeve that I had finished second. So that was really helpful to me. I sometimes try to do that with my sweaters as well. With my my gray sweater that I just finished, I did try to weave in ends as I went, just because I knew that at the end that was going to be a very big task. And especially when you join a new ball of yarn, those stitches are kind of loose for a while. And so by tightening them and then weaving in the ends, it kind of anchors that stitch so that they don't get stretched out as much as they could. So I try to do that as well, just because I'm annoyed with those stretched out stitches. I'm like, why is there a hole? And then I realize, oh, it's because I've joined a new ball and those stitches are just loose. So I try to take care of that before I finish the knitting part, just because it annoys me. So that's just a personal preference. I guess that's all I have to say about finishing. If you guys have any questions about finishing or how I do finishing work, or what I consider finished, or anything related to kind of the end of the knitting. I mean, we all know how to cast on and go, and then kind of toward the end, things kind of peter out. I usually go on finishing sprees. Like lately I've been on a finishing spree, if you can tell, before Vogue Knitting Live, because I needed to finish my homework, which was pretty quick. Then I was like, oh, I want to finish the sweater, which finally happened. Still have a lot of work to do on that, but the knitting's done. And then I finished Chloe, which was another one of my goals. And there was one more thing I wanted to finish, which is the thing I cast on at lunch today, but I'm not entirely happy with it, and so it may not happen, and I'm okay with that. I kind of, I was okay either way. So that was a big kind of deadline for me, and then I've got, things lined up for my next batch, basically, which I've talked about before. So I tend to have finishing sprees where I just am like, finish all the things. Mainly because I want to cast on new things, but I can't if things are still occupying my project bags. So I'll finish something, kind of clean out the project bag, throw away any extra yarn bits, make sure all the stitch markers are back in the notions pouch thing, or, whatever. And then I can put the next project in there. So yay for that. One more thing I wanted to talk about on the horizon. Since I'm going to a knitting event, I need to bring knitting, right? And I don't really have a whole lot of knitting on my needles right now, if you could tell. I'm kind of like one thing that's at the point where I need to pay attention to it, so it's not good, take with you knitting. So I've decided I'm going to cast back on Trillion, which I had always planned on knitting, just that yarn didn't work out. But I've wound this cake up, which has been sitting by my bed for the last week. I wound it up a while ago, and it's kind of just been staring at me. It was so pretty. I love how it wound up into this cake. It's just so cool. It's gotten a little messy over the week from me trying to move it so the cat doesn't get at it. But this is another Crafty Girl strong sock in the I Can Fix It colorway, which is a Wreck-It Ralph reference. And so this is going to be my Trillion. I decided that I thought this was going to be socks. I was kind of determined this was going to be socks. And then I kept looking at it and I was like, no, I really want that next to my face. I love these colors. They look great on me. And I decided it needed to be a shawl. And I was going to do a different one. And then I was like, no, I think it wants to be a Trillion. So this is going to be my take with me knitting. So I'll probably cast this on tomorrow and ditch the other project, which is I'm not entirely happy with. So that's going to be my take with me knitting. So if you see me knitting on this at Vogue Knitting Live, come say hi. Come say hi anyway. I'm a very friendly person. I do like to hug. So if you're not a hugger, put your hand out and I'll shake it. Otherwise, you'll probably get a hug. Yeah, so with that, I will say goodbye and have a great week, and I hope to see some of you at Vogue Knitting Live. One more thing I forgot to add is what I'm wearing. This is a cowl I knit, I guess this spring, I think. It was last winter. I don't remember. Anyway, it is the Manic Panic cowl. It's just a simple linen stitch cowl out of Claudia hand paints in 3 different colors. There's a light pinkish color, a variegated green color, and a light blue color. I don't remember what they're called, but you can look on my project page. It's called the Manic Panic cowl. So that's it. Bye.